outside of the Catholic Church and you go to other cultures, you also find the depictions of the Orion Nebula, for example, the Mayans. They thought the Orion Nebula was a place of creation because they had the three hearthstones, which were labeled as Rigel, Siph, and Alnitek. And in the middle of that triangle, they considered creation, which is right where the Orion Nebula is. So there's a lot of people out there that associate the Orion Nebula with things that are bad because it's associated with the Vatican, but they don't realize that you have to understand that the Vatican was hiding this stuff. When the Mayans and the Hopi and people like that, they weren't hiding anything about it. And in addition, the Catholic Church actually at one point had stolen, I believe, the Popol Vuh, which is a sacred Bible from the Mayans, and had hidden it in a Catholic Church altar. So there's this motive in order to keep something quiet about the Orion Nebula by the Church.
It seems to be, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems to be their modus operandi. So it's quite interesting. And you say that this is also in St. Peter's, right? So let's hold that thought and we'll go to the St. Peter's one after the break.
Okay.
And you're listening to American Freedom Radio. And I'm here with Danny Wilton discussing the Orion Nebula. Thank you. Okay, welcome back for the second segment of the Santos Bonacci show. Today I have a very interesting guest, and we're discussing with Danny Wilton the discoveries of the Orion Nebula in many of the churches and cathedrals around Europe. And this is quite interesting how 400 years ago they were depicting the Orion Nebula as accurately as we see it today from the Hubble telescope. So, Danny, it's interesting, before the break, we were talking about the Mayans, that the Mayans believed that in between the stars of Rigel, Siph, and Alnitak, in the Orion constellation is where creation comes from. Creation is being caused in this section of the zodiac.
Right. And not only the Mayans, but the Hopi. If you take a look at, in fact, Dan Winter discovered, I don't know the gentleman's name, but someone who had noted that a lot of the ruins from the Hopi, if you take a look at their cities and where they lived, were also matching the Orion constellation. So you have this pattern that is basically coming from all over the world. And I believe that it all stems back to Egypt because, when you take a look at Osiris' tomb, you see the flower of life. There's something special there. And then you have Alexander the Great. He came in and defeated, the Egypt. And then all of a sudden you have this huge obelisk in the middle of Piazza Square. So I think a lot of this is stemming back to something that was known during Egypt. What's your take on that, Santos?
Yeah, well, look, I'm looking at one of the photos right now that you've posted, one of the pictures you've posted on your Facebook site, where you have Jesus with outstretched arms on the cross right in the middle of this nebula.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then, as you said, you have this king above him and then the holy dove above that, right? Uh-huh. Now, all of these have their correspondences in the Orion Nebula. I mean, this is absolutely verifiable, isn't it? I mean, you can see it.
Right. I think you can see it. And even in artists that come later on, for example, Salvador Dali, if you take a look at his painting called The Ascension of Christ, what you see is you see that same figure above Christ with the dove right underneath her chin, and then Christ with his arms stretched out, just like you see inside the Orion Nebula. You can see that Christ archetype. Now, I only zoomed in on his head, but if you look in the middle of the nebula, you actually see it looks like a whole man floating in the middle of the nebula. And so you see it in Salvador Dali's paintings. You see it in a lot of the really old art. In fact, it goes back probably to 800, 700 AD. You can find some paintings that are depicting the same thing. And even though they're not as highly detailed as what you see in the Cathedral of St. Peter or some of these altars, you can still see that they're pointing to the same thing because you have the same basic symbols and they're in the same places. And so this picture that you see with Christ there that you're pointing out it's got that shape like it's a womb, doesn't it?
It does. Now, you asked me what my take is on that particular aspect of all of this. Well, we did discuss that Orion was the lamb and Jesus is the lamb. There's another aspect of Jesus, and that is that he is the Logos. Now, I've shown in my presentations that Taurus corresponds to the part of the head which is where the mouth is, the mouth and the neck. You see, in astrology, Aries is the top of the head, and Taurus is the bottom of the head, and then, of course, the twins would be Gemini. Now, so what we have there is, if Taurus rules the bottom of the mouth, well, that's where the mouth does the speaking, you see, and speaking is the Logos, the word. And so this is what they would be doing too. I mean, this is on an astrotheological level that I'm talking here. They are symbolizing the fact that Jesus, in the role of the Word, is in Orion. That is part of the macrocosmic Adam Katmon man, which does the speaking, which does the Logos. Because Aries above Taurus, or adjacent to Taurus, in the top part of the head, well, that's where the brain is. That's where the thinking is done, you see. So thinking is processed in the brain, which corresponds with Aries. Speaking is processed in Taurus, which is the mouth. And doing has to do with Gemini, the two hands, because that's where you do things, you see. You go doing everything you do with your hands. Right. And they are the twins. So you see, we have this very, very particular group of stars, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, and the ancients have always praised that quadrant of stars which corresponds to the spring. You see, the golden age, right. The morning time from 6 a.m. to 12 midday. And you see, they are the most precious of all the stars in the skies, because right in the middle there is the Pleiades. I mean, the Pleiades is the jewel of the heavens. And I'm showing in my videos that the Pleiades correspond to the pineal gland, you see. And in the Pleiades there is a star called Alcyone. And Alcyone, by the occultists and the esoterists, they say that Alcyone is the throne of God, you see. And it's where God sits on his throne and rules all of the star systems and rules all of the heavens. And so therefore, if that corresponds to the pineal gland is pretty much the boss, if you like, the governor of the lymphatic system and your 7 ductless glands.
Well, I have a question for you related. I have a question for you related to that. When you take a look at the Karlskirch Church, and you also which is the St. Charles Church, and you take a look at the Cathedral of St. Peter, what you see at the bottom of the Orion Nebula, in both cases, especially in the Cathedral of St. Peter, is you see St. Peter's throne. And then and St. Peter is known for one of his famous statues of he's holding the keys to heaven. Have you seen that?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a relationship there, you think?
Well, that one I need to think about, because Peter is Jupiter, you see. In the Gospels, the character of Jesus, yes, is the Son. And his favorite apostle, of course, which is Peter, that would be Jupiter. And in the solar system, that's how it works. The favorite of the sun is Jupiter, because they are positive planets. They are benefactors. You see, Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. Saturn is known as the greater malefic. You see,
right.
So the sun and Saturn have this kind of opposition always. They're always opposed to each other in some way, and also their natures. The sun is hot, whereas Saturn is cold. But Jupiter, on the other hand, he's warm. He's hot and moist, and he's a benefic. You see, so he being in there, the Apostle Peter, that would also have to do with the fact that he is a shining friend of the sun. You see, the Logos, Jesus. And this is what they're trying to tell you, Danny. You see, it's all about science. There is nothing in those artworks that is not science. It's just up to us to discover the key and what they're exactly trying to say, and on how many levels, because there's always 4 to 7 levels in all of this. They never present a symbol which has only one meaning. You see, spiritual symbols have a depth of meaning.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I've taken the star tetrahedron inside of the center of that Orion Nebula and taken it down to almost a quantum level to what I see in other pictures. And it's very interesting that the eye that seems to be right in the middle of the star tetrahedron is actually a large vortex. And I don't know exactly what that means, but when I take a look at symbolism such as the Eye of Ra, for example, and I take a look at the Zen symbol and the ancient swastika symbol, they all seem to me like they're pointing to a vortex or a black hole of some sort.
For listeners who are interested in checking out your work, Danny, we've neglected to give them a YouTube site or some links, or perhaps do you have a website, or can you give people your Facebook details, perhaps, or anything, so that they can check out your work?
Sure. Actually, my YouTube site's the most popular. That's where I post most of my stuff. And the handle that I go by is Starscream, but it's mixed with with letters and numbers, so it's actually 5t4rscream233. And that's, once again, that's 5t as in Tom, 4r scream233.
And is that scream as in SCREAN?
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like Starscream 233.
That's right. And that's where I post most of my stuff.
And the number
233 is,
right.
It used to be 144, but I think YouTube was about to try to get rid of that account. So I moved it up to the next number in the Fibonacci sequence. So it's now 233.
Yeah, that's a very significant number, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, goodness. And, yeah, and website? Do you have a website?
I don't have a website at this time. I was going to create one here pretty soon, but right now I'm pretty much using Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, so is your YouTube site easy to navigate? Which videos would you recommend one watches first?
Well, I have two great playlists out there. If you're interested in the Mayan calendar stuff, then I have something called the Mayan Ninth Wave Cliff Notes. That's one of the playlists. The playlist that goes into some of the stuff that we're seeing now, including the Orion Nebula stuff. The latest playlist that I have out there is called Recreating the Past, and it's actually featured on my channel right now.